Hey, paisans, the time has come. On the air since 2009, the independently produced, non-FCC compliant champ of video game talk podcasting. Here comes Tiger Claw Radio. Here's your host, Critical Failure.
Yep, it's that time again. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. This is Critical Failure. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. This week, we got some games, we got some chiptunes, we got some good stuff. You know how it is. It's the clubhouse. We're going to hang out. We're going to have a good old time. Before we get into chiptunes, this is a rip from my personal vinyl collection. And I found this on my hard drive. So I probably ripped this, I don't know how many years ago. This is the Pink Lincolns on Tiger Claw Radio.
Great danger for that lonely stranger town. No silver bullets, tacos split the scene. Next week will solve your problem, but now big fingers all in a line. The bottle's dead empty. They look at your TV set. There's great danger. Atmos came from St. Paul. No club of justice. Robin split the sane. Next week will solve your problem, but now we leave us all in a line. The bottle's dead empty. They look at your TV set. Your TV set. Hey, look at 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 your TV set. Take a look at your TV set. I got that close to your no TV party tonight. Baywatch.
Be good to your TV set. Alright, let's shift gears and jump over to one of the old summer chip compilations from Battle of the Bits, so we can get a nice dose of chip tunes to put us in the right mood. Stick with us, you'll listen to Tiger Claw Radio. All right, I'm currently waiting on Swingle to get back from wherever he is. We were playing some Bloodsports TV. So let's talk a little bit about this bundle that was over on the Fanatical. It's a multiplayer bundle. Swingle's been the bundle guy for as long as I can remember. He always has the inside dope on which ones are good, which ones are worth checking out, and whatnot. But it's ultimately, these days, very rare for us to all get the same bundle and benefit from it. So there was an exception to that rule these past couple of weeks. There's a multiplayer bundle over on Fanatical with like 5 or 6 games in it, and we all picked it up. So the games that were in the bundle, I'm not going to bother going through the entire list, but it has been a lot of fun to play. It's a lot of games that on their own, for the most part, wouldn't be fun, but it was fun to actually have a group, okay? Like, there's a game called What the Box, which is essentially a stripped-down first-person shooter with really simple mechanics and no weapons to pick up, so everybody's on the same page. But what the clever twist is that you are the shape of a box, and you're surrounded by boxes. So if you just stand still, you can actually blend in. So we had a moment this past weekend where there was 5 of us and plus a rando, so 6 of us in a single game, and it was a ton of fun. But interestingly enough, if you were to just come across that game randomly, and it's only $5 in the on Steam regular price, but if you were to come across it randomly and just pick it up yourself, what you'd find is a game that has no one playing it, and therefore there wouldn't be any fun. But because it was in this multiplayer bundle, we actually had a really good time with it. And then another game in the bundle was Bloodsports TV, which is an old standby in our group. It's a game that Swingle introduced me to, which plays a lot like MOBA games, like Dota 2 or League of Legends or that sort of thing. But it's 100% co-op, which I appreciate because I've never been good at those games. So yeah, that it's been like a standby for quite some time, but because it surfaced in this bundle, now we've got a bunch of extra Bloodsports TV keys. So this has been fun to revive this old game and check it out. As far as I know, I think that bundle's still around, but I'd have to double check. I'm not sure if you can hear that in the background, but that's the Bloodsports TV title theme. So hopefully Swingle will be joining us here in a second. How you doing, Swingle? You there? I'm hearing hms. Alright, hang on a second. I was recording for TCR. Let me just hit stop.
Okay.
Hold on. I'll tell you when I'm off. Last night I returned to the well and I ended up picking up... Oh golly, did I close the window already? I went back to Fanatical and it was one of those build-a-bundle type things. And I ended up picking it. Yeah, here we go. What was the name of the bundle? One of the build-a-bundles, I don't know. But I ended up getting Tropico 5, Sudden Strike 4, Port Royal 3, Party Hard, Internet Cafe Simulator, just as a placeholder. And a bunch of other games. The standouts was Cathedral 3D. Turned out to be a really good game. It's one of these games that's it's first-person shooty type thing, but it looks old and it's much more. What was the term that Swingley used? It's a hero defense game as opposed to a straight-up FPS. You know, find the exit, kill everyone. So you'll die in seconds. Very fast-paced. You have a little chest, and the monsters are coming from all sides. They're trying to kill you, and if they destroy the chest, then you also die. I don't know, pretty cool game. It looks cool, plays cool. My only complaint is that it seems to crash quite a lot. I've never had it crash in the middle of a game. Like, I've never had a particular run-through ruined by the crashing. But what will happen is it'll crash between games when I wasn't done playing, which is a minor annoyance, but it's happened like 3 or 4 times, and I've only put like an hour into the game, so it seems like a big problem. I don't know what it costs normally, but I got it in the bundle, and that was a good time. And then I was playing Party Hard this morning, and last night a little bit, because I like pixel graphics, ultra-violent pixel graphic games. After that, I went back to see what else they had, and I was interested in the game Beat Cop, which is in yet another bundle, but I didn't quite pull the trigger on that one. So that was cool to enjoy, like getting some new Steam games, really for the first time in a while, outside of one of the major sales. The major sales hit, and I'll usually get a game or two, but there hasn't been a whole lot of activity for me getting Steam games in quite a while, and rightfully so too. Just because I had so much in my Steam collection, I didn't need any new games for quite some time. Yeah, but this has been good. This has been a good time. Let's see if that fixes the fuzz at all. Yeah, that does seem a lot better. The Winter Chip 16 battle is underway over at BattleTheBits.org. So we got new music from RushJet 1. Has a simple little number. Now, again, the battle's still underway, so this is not something you can pick up via Bandcamp, but you can go check out the submissions, all submissions together. And I noticed RushJet 1 pop up a few times, so here's one of his tracks. This is Sin, open parentheses, on Tiger Claw Radio. Let's do one more. Can we do one more? This is a collaboration between KGB 525 and Cleater, and it looks like they made a Sid sound chip tune, which fits right in because I've been playing, up until checking out the bundles, I'd been playing quite a bit of Commodore 64 lately. So this is High Pass Fortress, and we're going to return to the Commodore 64 in just a minute. You're listening to TCR. How we doing? I had to take a break from recording, so let's do sound test again. It's always a touchy thing going back to revisit games that you have very fond memories of but haven't played since childhood. That's something that just happened. Now, I'll give you the truncated version because I know I've told this on the air before, but one game that I remember very fondly, actually one of my all-time favorite gaming memories, was a game for the PlayStation, first PlayStation system called SmackDown 2. All right, so just to put it in context, PS1 era graphics, but it was a wrestling game at like the height of wrestling. It was the 90s had just ended. The big Rock and Stone Cold thing was going on at the time. People still really liked wrestling. It was in the public eye more so than it is now. My buddy Angie and I were into wrestling. We had just come off a game. There was another wrestling game that was pretty big in my area, WWF Warzone, which is not a good wrestling game. It had a lot of button combination memorization and stuff like that, but it had a creator wrestler. It was fun little game. SmackDown had everything that Warzone had, but it was much more playable. You could pick it up and play it as opposed to having to memorize button combinations. So that plus like some customization, creator wrestler, that kind of thing, got us really into it. So I spent the night at Angie's house one time, which I didn't get to do much when I was young. And we stayed up playing SmackDown 2 all night. We had an 8-hour session of SmackDown 2. It's the most I remember playing any one game at one time without breaking. It was 8 hours playing SmackDown 2. Breaking only for getting Cokes out of the fridge and using the restroom and stuff like that. The stuff that'll keep you from kicking the bucket if you're at, if you're at a internet cafe in Korea, that sort of thing. Now, after that night, I never really had the same fun with SmackDown 2 again. That was like the big blowout night, and we played it a couple times after that, but that was really it. So I just went back and played SmackDown 2, loaded up on RetroArch. Let's be fair, it still plays smoother than Warzone does, but man, I think it's just seeing the PS1 graphics again. Because at the time, that was enough for me to really get into it. But, I don't know, it's pretty derpy now. So I caution you. This isn't the first time this happened either. Another great example is Stunt Race FX. It was a game I remember very fondly as a kid. But then I went back to it as an adult, and I couldn't believe I was able to enjoy something with that slow a frame rate. Even for me. Alright, that said, we're 20 minutes in. Let's just take a quick second. We're going to thank the Patreon sponsors. This is a Patreon-sponsored show. These people keep TCR coming back week after week. So I'd just like to tip my hat to these individuals and read their names off in a hall of distinguished gentlemen. And they are Hemrock, EmeraldRangers.com, Tecmo Balls, Darabka, and Eric Controller. Thank you guys so much for keeping the show alive. I hope you're enjoying the party. Alright, let's see what we got here. Let's go ahead and kick things over to the fail bag. We got an email from Hemrock who writes, "Greetings CF, thanks as usual for another episode. Long live the NES. I remember the great Tiger of Punch-Out fame from my childhood. Good times. Also, Solar Striker is a classic shmup for the original Game Boy with a killer soundtrack. Excellent choices, sir. Have you been playing any more of the NES? Did you get the console hooked up? Ever touched the Ultima series for the console? I think that's no on all counts on that one. How's your daughter liking Pokemon Sapphire? Watch out, there's a lot of bootleg carts out there." She's enjoying it. I have the Pokemon Sapphire that I got like when it was still the new game. So I have that physical cart, and she's playing it on RetroArch on Steam. So it is like a ROM, but it's not a bootleg. At least it plays like the actual game. And she's digging it, man. It's great because she needs to practice her reading, and she is doing so while playing that game. Glad to hear that you're still having fun with Jetpack. I did not know a full version of Christmas Jetpack was never released. Yeah, I went asking about it on the Discord, because apparently there's a Discord for Jetpack that has people who really know about that game. And what they told me was they never released that version, but there is a graphics pack for the original Jetpack that will revert it to Christmas graphics, or something very close to it. And that's what they told me to do. They said mod the original Jetpack to make it look like Christmas, and then just play all your levels that way. It's a little bit different. Like, when you pick up the green orbs, you're, I think, actually leaving presents in that version, but it's a similar kind of thing. I'm still digging through the 8-Bit Collective, currently in the K's. See the attached for another recommended song if you are so inclined. Absolutely, yeah, we'll play it once we're done with the email. I really enjoyed your DOS game discussion. I know you're a fan of Panzer General. Did you ever play Fantasy General? Yes, I did, actually. Weirdly enough, over on GOG.com, they don't have the original Panzer General. It's the only one they're missing. But there are a lot of reskins of that game, one of them being Fantasy General, where it's the same game, just the units just look different. Pacific General, Allied General, and Fantasy General, I think, are the ones that come to mind. I don't know if there's more or not, but Fantasy General I can't remember if it was free or if I got it for like $1, but I have that on GOG. I played it quite a bit, particularly with this old laptop I used to have, and I've talked about this before. I spent $100 on a very small laptop that ran on mobile technology. It just happened to have Windows 10 on it. Now, eventually that thing crumbled, but one of the few games that I played on it pretty regularly was Fantasy General. It's a good game. It's a good game. But let's see what else he says here. Thanks for that awesome top 5 C64 list. Yeah, if we could revisit that. I meant to talk about this on the air, but there was a freeware game on Steam. Well, it is on Steam, but it's like a Windows game. I played it before Steam, called Super Crate Box, that I think you're familiar with. Well, Super Crate Box was ported to the C64 in a game called Super Bread Box, and it's a pretty faithful port. And that has been, since we last talked about it, because it's been a week now, that has been the most played Commodore 64 game. That, along with Tiny Quest, the game that you linked to in your breakdown. I actually bought that because I loved how they were doing it. It's mad expensive if you want a physical box. It comes down a little bit, I think, if you just wanted a card. But the physical media is really expensive. But you can buy just the data for $3. So I did, and it was really good. Single screen, side-scrolling action. Think of it like, I don't know, like Dizzy or Mario Brothers or something like that, but only existing on a single screen, and you've got X amount of seconds to get from the left to the right. But the time limit they give you is actually really, really close. I'm used to playing Super Mario Brothers where there's a time limit, but they give you plenty of time as long as you are pushing forward towards the end. This one is really close, man. So if you miss a jump, yeah, you can walk back and try it again, but you're probably not going to have the time to do so. I've been enjoying it. So Tiny Quest and Super Bread Box, two really good Commodore 64 games that were not on that last list. Back to the email. I've also been playing a lot of Morrowind on the original Xbox. The game is hitting me right in the feels. Somewhat rare for me these days to have the perfect match of an engrossing game and enough time to thoroughly enjoy it. Pretty sweet. Pretty sweet. Glad you're digging it. Morrowind is an awesome game, and definitely a worthwhile game to go back to when you've got time. Did you purchase, he says, any of those C64 games from that website on my last email? Well, Tiny Quest, of course, but there were a couple other ones I looked at, because not every game has the same pay model when it comes to just buying the data. There was a top-down, like, shmup, like 8-direction space shooter, where they gave the data away for free. I can't remember what it was called. I haven't tried it yet, but I did grab that. And there was also a dungeon-crawling game. I'd like to look this up, because I can't remember what it was called. There was a dungeon-crawling game, like a first-person sort of dungeon crawler, Wizardry, Eye of the Beholder, that kind of thing, where the data was $5. And a little bit more expensive than Tiny Quest, but the game looked really good. And the physical version of that game was sold out. the title was one word and it started with A, but I can't remember what it was because it was like, I don't know, it was like made up word kind of title, but it was also written in sort of a weird sort of bubble letter graffiti type font that made it very difficult to read. I might see if I can dig that title up. Hang on. I surely do not know, and I just fell down a rabbit hole trying to dig it up. But yeah, I'm digging the C64 scene. New games are being developed that actually look good and are appropriately priced and are accessible. It seems like you can get most digital games for the Commodore 64 for $5 or thereabouts. Because I looked at a bunch after getting Tiny Quest and really digging it, and that one seemed anomalous, and that free shmup seemed anomalous. It's $5 is like the Blue Book ticket price. A little, sometimes, you know, $1 too high, $1 too low, or whatever it is. $5 seems to be the average. Yeah, it's unfortunate I can't find that page again. I wish I had bookmarked it. I don't know why I didn't. Yeah, but it's been good times. It's been good times. I wondered about some of the other classic computing systems have the same thing going on. Like Amiga games are being developed in the same way. Same with the Spectrum. But I don't think I would want to sit at my normal computer and play Spectrum games or Amiga games. But there's also no, as far as I know, there's no like open platform clone, kind of like the, you know, the C64 Mini and the Maxi, whatever. So I thought about those, and I think at that point, then it's time to buy another Raspberry Pi. But if you're buying it for old computing, it wouldn't have to be, you know, you could get the one that is the least powered Pi would run these types of machines. So it would actually be inexpensive as it used to be. That's the weird thing about Raspberry Pi, is the pricing model. They started getting more and more powerful, which is great, but now it's just like, okay, I could get one of these and all the accessories for $100, or I could just get a set-top box computer that runs Windows 10 for $100. And yeah, that wouldn't be able to do much. You probably wouldn't be able to do as much in emulation, but I could connect that to my Steam account and probably run Morrowind or something off of it. I don't know. So there has to be a line. You have to have clearly defined goals now. So yeah, there you go. I'm rambling. C64 is awesome. Let's get back to the email. There we go. Retro gaming news for this week is coming from our good friend Triverse over at retrogamingmagazine.com. Triverse. Glad to hear he's still around and kicking. That's a guy who did a lot of good for TCR over the years. It's been a while since I heard from him, though. Number 1, Wizardry Proving Grounds of the Mad Overlord for the Wonder Swan Color has been translated to English. Did you ever play this game on the C64? Whoa, man. Okay, lots to unpack there. Couple things. Wizardry, particularly Proving Grounds, because that's the first Wizardry scenario, has been on my like top 10 beloved video games of all time for many, many, many years. Not best games, but most beloved, because it goes back to when I was a kid. I don't know if you're familiar with Walden's Books. I can't remember if it was a Walden's Books or Crown Books, but one of those mall bookstores that isn't around anymore. Went into one with my dad when I was just a tiny, tiny kid, and he picked up like the Wizardry trilogy for DOS or something, and we played Proving Grounds quite a bit. So now let's talk about the Wonder Swan. So Wizardry, as you might be aware of, more popular in Japan. Okay, died off in the States pretty quickly, or died off in the States, but in Japan it stayed popular. So consequently, there's a number of Japanese releases we never got in America, and one of them is the Wonder Swan. And there's no North American Wonder Swan system. But the vast majority of Wizardry games, including this Proving Grounds, even though it was Japanese only, you could go to the menus and you could switch the language to English. That's why I think this is an interesting story, because there is no real reason to translate it to English. You could just open it up, go to the menu, switch to English. That's why in my Famicom collection, I made sure to get the Wizardry games. Because they're Famicom RPGs, Japanese RPGs that you can play in English. So awesome if they did that. The WonderSwan version in particular is a very good version because it has auto mapping, which the original Wizardry didn't have, and most versions it doesn't have. Even if on the NES, if you played on the NES and you try and check your map, it just gives you coordinates expecting you to have a physical map, on a piece of paper. Whereas the WonderSwan brings up a map you can look at. And that's cool that they translate. I'll have to check that out. I haven't checked out the WonderSwan in quite some time, since the WonderSwan that I own has a bit of a screen darkening issue with it. And at the time, it was like $15 for a WonderSwan shipped, and they've since, I wouldn't say they've gone through the roof, but percentage-wise, they have. They're a lot more expensive than they used to be. Okay, number 2, Paprium is a new fighting game for the Sega Genesis. It's been finally released years after it was originally announced. It was made by the same company that brought us Pure Solar. Unsurprisingly, it sold out quickly. Okay, so here's the thing about Pure Solar and the like. When Pure Solar was coming out, it wasn't quite as prominent a market for these indie games, I don't think. There was really only a couple of companies that are doing it, or were doing it. And their digital distribution, they did have digital distribution in the end, but it came at a hefty cost. So let's see. I'm looking at this Paprium page, and I'm wondering what they're going to charge. Like if I just buy a ROM, how much do they want to charge me for that? Because there's no way. Look at it. Even recently released titles will come in well under $100 per copy. Yeah, there's no way I'm buying a physical card of this. It's just not going to happen. Yeah, but shoot me a good price on a ROM that I can buy and play legally, and I'm all in. Let's take a quick look at this trailer. And they do the retro-looking trailer. Let's see some gameplay. Uh-oh, bad sign. They're not showing gameplay. What if I fast forward just a little bit? Yeah, here we go. This is a fighting game? This looks more like a beat 'em up. Like Streets of Rage kind of thing. Can you beat them all? Yeah, brawler title. Yeah, Streets of Rage kind of thing. Looks good. It's a sharp looking game. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I gotta say I'm interested looking at it. They have to bring me a reasonable price, because it's just it's just not gonna happen for $100. I'm sorry, it's not financially feasible, and I want to support them. I want to be able to. There needs to be a company that's making high-end games like this still, but I don't know. I'm on the fence about it. We'll see. Alright, let's get back to the email. A lost Simpsons game for the Sega Dreamcast has been found. So this piques my interest because you're not talking about a new game being made. You're talking about a lost game being found. So let's see what we have. Yeah, okay. Simpsons, to me, I don't know. I would like to see the Simpsons just disappear at this point. I love the Simpsons arcade game, but I don't know. Lost Simpsons Bug Squad Sega Dreamcast game discovered. That's a cool one for Dreamcast people, I would say. I love the Dreamcast. Been a bit since I've taken it for a spin, but that is an awesome system. And the fourth and final bit in his news is Super Mario Bros. For Intellivision has been revealed. This one I took a look at, and I was shocked. So just to be clear, this is a demake. This is not like, a game that was from back in the day. Again, and it looks really well done. Like, I'm really impressed. I don't know how you would attain something like this, because this is just something being shown, being revealed. Like, I don't think it's not something you can actually buy, but it looks pretty slick, and it reminds me of when I used to own an Intellivision. Yeah, that looks really good. You'd see a game like this, and it would only have a level or two. I can't imagine this would have the entire game, but I'll have to watch Travers's video and see what's up. Looks really good, man. I'm really digging it. Keep rolling retro. Hemrock. Bring back Monday Night Morrowind. Hemrock, brother. Good to hear from you, man. I hope you're doing well. Hope you're enjoying Morrowind. And take care of yourself. Stay healthy. Let's see. Let's take a quick listen to what is titled HCM.mp3. It is the recommended chiptune that Hemrock has sent along our way from the 8-Bit Collective archives from 10 years ago. Stick around, you're listening to TCR. Alright, heading over to YouTube to see what people are saying over the past week. We got one from Swingle who writes, 7 minutes and 50 seconds in, just as an FYI, you cannot compare emulation input lag with Android processors. They have no L3 cache and typically have no more than 512 kilobytes of L2 cache. Emulators demand high clock speeds and high frequency cache to resolve things like input lag. They aren't bad for general emulation, but if you play a game that demands tight timings and gameplay, Android chips are terrible to use. Most real computers from 2010 and beyond have almost no lag. It's the prime reason people typically use Intel chips over AMD during the time for PS2 emulation. It's nearly 40% different in speed. Yeah, so here we go with some pretty fine-grained technology knowledge from Swingle. Now, he and I have briefly discussed this comment since then. And I mean, he's offering the scientific evidence for what I was already saying. Yeah, if you hook your Android phone up and use it as an emulator machine, general emulation, it's going to do just fine. A lot of games it'll work great for. Punch-Out, it didn't. And that's the reason why I call Punch-Out the litmus test, just to see how it stands up in terms of input lag. But you could play the heck out of some, Dragon Warrior 3 on an Android phone or whatnot. I still use it. I played the last NES game I really dug into was Urban Champion, just somewhat of a weird title to be into, but played it on my phone, hooked up to a TV with a controller, worked just fine. Thanks for checking in, Swingle. I always appreciate it. Desm writes, I still need a copy of the Mike Tyson version. I only have the lame regular Punch-Out. Lol. Playing Wing Commander 1 and 2 on SNES as a kid made me feel like I could be stuck on a deserted island with those games and never, ever get bored. So amazing for their time. Yes, they were. Yes, they were, man. So good. Death Adder says, I know you prefer Street Fighter over Mortal Kombat, which is okay. Nobody's perfect. But since you're still a man of culture and enjoy old kung fu movies, I figured you'd probably enjoy that there's a trailer out for the new 2021 Mortal Kombat movie. I'd plunk a link here, but YouTube. Yeah, I know how it is. But that's the thing. I haven't checked it out yet, but I did get word that such a trailer does exist. Mecha Menace writes, the first track sounds like it took notes from Y. Kishoro's crass techno-jazz mix for Streets of Rage 3. Doesn't care what you think, and you will appreciate its quirks eventually. Second track is like ska chiptunes, so it's like an Anamaguchi track. Anamanaguchi track, there you go. Your short retrospective on Wolf 3D made me think about my experience playing the game on our 286 with a PC speaker sound. The modern takes I've seen often stir the pools of memories, making them cloudy. Was that the experience I had? These modern takes usually usually up the specs to max. Using my sound equipment I could never choose, but always thought was better. Sound samples of dogs barking and metal sliding doors and cries of "Mein Leben" create a full soundtrack underscored by MIDI music. All playthroughs show this as the Wolf 3D we all remember. However, that's not the case for you and I. I'm sure it's not the same for many others. Interestingly, you could question whether any PC game experience from that era is the version of which nostalgic dreams are made. I had to lower down the settings to get Crysis to run on my 88 GT. That undersampled mess is what I took away from the experience because I didn't want to sacrifice image fidelity. Unlike consoles, I think there are many flavors of nostalgia for PC games when strictly talking about the technical stuff, interface, graphics, and sound. You hit upon how we play these games. Modern game experiences change what we expect from our time with a game. It was totally fine. It's totally fine to scan every single surface for a hidden passage and switch in Wolf 3D because once I saw it, it was all I wanted to do. Of course, I would progress through the game without knowing that in order to progress, I had to find a hidden passage. I think the developers realized that people enjoyed finding hidden passages and made it a skill necessary to progress. When approaching the game fresh today, checking walls might be viewed as something tedious and stops you from progressing. It's bad design since there isn't a series of lessons on how to use the skill. You discover it by accident or by watching someone else who knows how to play. It also suffers from the Zelda 1 issue, where all the tiles look the same and you have to figure out which one is a hidden shop or cave. I hate this school of thought. While I don't think solutions to puzzles should be obvious, there should be something that sticks out as being odd or noteworthy of more study. Yeah, I completely agree. By the time Metroid Prime hit the scene, I was starting to tire of the idea that I had to 100% games, of which I wasn't a huge fan. Games weren't quite disposable since I hadn't discovered garage sales, if only. And it seemed like I could keep track of all the latest games. I think that is when the light bulb blinked in my head. Why am I doing this if I hate it? A game can enthrall you for many reasons. Some people really dig scanning everything in Metroid Prime or tapping on all the walls in Wolf 3D. Yeah, that's an interesting point. Then again, we're viewing these games retrospectively with the knowledge of how puzzles in games progressed. What is expected of the user during a certain era of gaming changes because of their exposure to certain tropes and familiarity with gaming consoles. Think of the SNL sketches from the 70s referencing plane hijackings and not understanding why a cigarette being smoked on it doesn't set off the fire alarm. What we take away from games is about as much as we put into them. As always, thank you for reading my comments. Because of that, I heard Death Adder's comment about about models in Mass Effect looking like former WWF wrestlers, which gave me a chuckle. Death Adder, if you're hearing this, you know what the thumbs up, that thumbs up I gave you for the comment happened now because of CF's commitment to the audience. CF, would you read every comment if 100% of the people wrote in each week? Have you ever been overwhelmed by comments? How do you handle internet fame? If 100 people wrote in each week, I don't know. I don't know what I'd do, to be perfectly honest. I don't know how I'd handle it. I've always told myself I'd find a way to keep reading them, because I've never had the moment where there's just too much. I don't think. Not that comes to mind. But yeah, I'd probably find some way to do it. Like, I'd give the show like a set time limit, and then there would be like an extra episode for the patrons or something that's just like going back and forth with comments or something. I don't know. I don't know what I would do. But if we were popular enough that 100 people were writing in, yeah, sure. I don't know. Why not? I would just do it like this, like it is now, where it's like the comments is the second half of the show. So if you're just casually listening, and you don't feel like listening to 100 comments, you'll know at the point in which you can tune out. I think that would be the way to do it. I don't want to have a line where it's like, all right, if the comments cross this line, then we can't do it anymore. I'm sure such a line exists, but I don't know what it is, and only time would be able to tell. And we got one from a comment from Sendu, who mentions the Star Tropics episode from 2 episodes ago. He says, at 26 minutes in, oh my, he brought the catchphrase back. I actually have to stop this and go see what he's talking about. Yeah, you'll have to go back and follow the link to know what he's talking about. I think that's everything. And then the thing about the interview I had with Paul Messier, Hemrock leaves a comment. Cool stuff. Nice red satin tower you have there, CF. MTG, I presume? Indeed it is. It is the same red satin tower which I brought to MagFest when we had our common box draft. Yeah, good times. James Glass leaves a comment on that same video saying, pretty wholesome to be honest. Looks like a lot of love went into game design. I hope we get to see a full-fledged realization down the line. He's talking, of course, about the Vanguards of the Lost Lands video with Paul. Yeah, it's a good-looking game. I mean, if you got the tabletop simulator, it's worth going to grab that off of the workshop for free and give it a test spin. And that's it. That's the fail bag for this week. Now, again, we're pushing 2 p.m. Time's running, so I want to make sure to get this wrapped and up. So I'll forego the usual outro tune. But as we go through this next week, just keep on keeping at it. Don't give up. Keep getting out of bed. Keep logging into work. Keep going to school. Keep doing whatever you got to do. If you're an essential worker, working at a restaurant or working somewhere else where you can't stay home, do everything you can to stay safe, but keep getting up. Keep facing the day. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next week.